This is my miter saw. About 6 months ago, I was actually thinking about selling this. Not because I didn't need one, not because it isn't useful, but because it was such a pain to set up a scrap fence every time I needed to do repeatable cuts.
First, I'd have to try to find a long enough piece of scrap.
Too short.
But not too long.
Too long.
Then, find the right size wood screws.
Too short. Too long.
Then attach it to the saw.
Mother... Oh, you son of a...
Then, clamp on a stop block.
Oh, come on.
I thought about building one of those miter saw stations you see everywhere on YouTube. But I just didn't have the time, the space, or the motivation to build a giant altar for a saw. I just want to cut with it, not pray to it. But then, I came up with an idea so simple, so brilliant, that it changed the way I use my miter saw.
It's alive, you hear me? It is my creation. It's alive! And over the next few minutes, I'll show you how you can do the same for your miter saw. Any miter saw. You ready? Let's do this thing. Hi everybody, hola amigos, Lee here from Busted Knuckle Woodworks.
Today, I'm showing you how to build this quick, easy, and versatile miter saw auxiliary fence. It's adjustable, it's configurable, it's fast and easy to set up and remove. And you can build this in under an hour using a few pieces of easily obtainable hardware. I'll link the parts I'm using in the description. The first thing you'll need to do is get yourself a piece of 1x4 material, about 6 feet in length. That will allow for a two-sided fence with 2 feet on one side and 4 feet on the other. I find that to be a pretty handy configuration. But of course, you don't need to build it that size. You could build a single-sided fence if you like. It could be 4 feet, or 3 feet, or 2 feet. Whatever makes sense for the type of cuts you need to make. That will determine the length of the material you need. I'm starting out with this piece of 1x4 primed MDF. You can use any type of material for this as long as it's not bowed, warped, or twisted. Since MDF is a manufactured product, I can be reasonably sure it's true all along its length. I'm chopping this 8-foot board into 2-foot and 4-foot lengths. We'll need to attach these to the existing miter saw fence. As you can see, this one has pre-drilled holes. Most miter saw fences come pre-drilled, but some don't, or if they do, the holes are in a bad spot. No worries, you can drill a pair of 1/4-inch holes yourself. These are just aluminum, so no need for a special bit or anything. If you do drill your own holes, make sure to locate them in an area that's flat in the back and doesn't drill into any of these reinforcement ribs. Also, make sure your holes are equidistant from the base. The next step is to mark the hole locations onto the boards. I like to shim the boards about an 1/8 inch from the table. This gives any sawdust a place to go so it doesn't build up in front of the fence. Let's go ahead and mark which edge is the bottom so we don't get confused. Now that we've done that, let's bring these over to the router table. We'll need to cut 2 grooves into each one, 3/4 of an inch wide and 3/8 of an inch deep to accommodate T-tracks. I'm using the T-track itself to set the depth. We'll want the first groove to line up with the marks we made for the holes. Then we'll set up the second groove for the T-track stop. The distance from the edge of the stop to the center is 3/4 of an inch. So we'll center this groove 3/4 of an inch from the bottom edge of the boards. Let's go ahead and mount these T-tracks. I'm using 3/8 inch screws here. This MDF is actually only 11/16, so a 1/2 inch screw would protrude out the other side. If your material is an actual 3/4 of an inch, You could use 1/2-inch screws. We'll slide these 1-inch 1/4-20 T-bolts through the holes on the back fence. Then loosely hold them in with these 1-inch 1/4-20 through knobs. Don't tighten these down quite yet. Slide the rear T-track onto the T-bolts, position the fence where you like, then tighten the knobs in the back. Finally, slide the inline T-track stop onto the front T-track, and you're done. There are a few other options you could add to something like this, like a tape measure. I don't use one because this auxiliary fence is movable, so a tape wouldn't really be practical unless you had a way to re-register it every time you put the fence on. And besides, I have trust issues, so I always measure manually anyway.
So there you have it. Quick, easy, really useful. It gets the job done, and we didn't have to build a ridiculous cathedral for a saw. Let me know in the comments what you think of this, and if you plan to build it yourself. I'm Lee from Busted Knuckle Woodworks. See you in the next one. Adios, amigos.